Everyone is speaking out about the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. contract situation, and Blue Jay fans are up in arms over the most recent report that dropped. Now, this is gonna shock some people, but Vladdy was offered a contract, pretty hefty one at that. So let's break it down and much more on this episode of Jay's Digest. Welcome in everybody to Jay's Digest. I'm your host Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse, and the Vladdy situation gets more interesting by the day, Nick. It truly has a ton of wrinkles that maybe we're not privy to. But before we get into all of it, just make sure to hit that subscribe button because we've been grinding away at this. And shout out to Nick as well for holding it down, being the top dog here, being the top dog, getting all that news out for you guys. And I'm trying my best to be there, but hit that sub button. It means the world to us because we're close to our goal of 15,000 subscribers. But Nick, this is a very peculiar situation that we got going on with Vladdy here because we know that he's the face of the franchise. We know that he's their best player. And we know that he's going to be worth a sizable amount of money. And if the Blue Jays want to keep him, they're not only going to have to beat their largest contract that they've ever given out, which was to George Springer, they're going to have to shatter that figure, especially with the way that he played last season, and especially with the way that the market is trending in the direction that it is. So, Nick, I think fans want Vladdy to stay. They want him to stay at the right price. But these figures that have been getting thrown around here, I mean, it's hard not to get scared about a potential Vladdy hitting the open market kind of situation.
Yeah, a report came out and it has not only, like you mentioned, Jays fans up in arms, the MLB, and I have some tweets here. Everyone from the Red Sox fans to every fan base is kind of speaking out, kind of either going at Ross Atkins or, like you'll see in a minute, kind of just discussing the current situation here. So, Peter, it starts with this. So, Carlos Baerga officially first came out again. Take it. It's been reported by a bunch of different people. The star player Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has chosen to reject an offer exceeding $340 million from the Toronto Blue Jays. So that's what Carlos Baerga came out and said. Mike Rodriguez came out and confirmed that tweet. And you also have Hector Gomez now coming out and tripling down on it and saying the Blue Jays offer to Vladdy was made before Juan Soto signed with the Mets, which is even crazier now. So again, whether you want to believe Carlos Baerga for a lot of the other signings, Peter, he's very privy to information specifically regarding Dominican players and players like that. He's been very good with that information. I want to get your thoughts on this. So according to Hector Gomez, and just in general, we know Vladdy was offered $340 million that he declined before Juan Soto signed. And now that Juan Soto signed for 760 plus, elevators all the way up until 805, I believe it is, $1 million. The Jays are in a position now where it's fans are really scared. Not scared, but worried that he's going to leave. You have things now. Mike Rodriguez and Baerga is quite the credibility combination here. But regardless, who surprises market value now is all higher. It's going to start with 4 at a minimum. And Peter, we were talking a month ago about how 300 million might be too much. He's going to get 400 minimum. He declined a contract at $340 million. And I just want to get your thoughts on that before we get into all the other reactions from other fan bases and things like that, because they're kind of making a laughing stock out of the Blue Jays here.
I think what Nick meant to say there was grain of salt for all of you that might have been confused there. But yeah, that's a lot of money, man. That is a lot of money. And we remember the situation where Juan Soto turned down a $440 million deal with the Washington Nationals before he ultimately got traded.
Right decision.
And that turned out to be a stroke of genius because he's in line to make 800 plus million now over the rest of his career. So I mean, people called him crazy at the time. People may call Vlad crazy for not taking the $340 million, but yeah, it's unfathomable the way that this market is moving and the direction that star players are just getting this exorbitant amount of money. It's nuts. It's crazy to me. And I don't think Vlad is worth $500 million. And it's no disrespect to him, but he's had some up and down seasons. He's not been the same player from year one to year six, whereas Juan Soto has. Whereas players like, let's say, Mike Trout have been pretty consistent, and I'm not comparing, and it's not really comparable in my opinion. Like you look at those numbers right there, uh, slightly above league average in some years, and just otherworldly seasons in other years. Like that's the Vladdy that we've gotten. It's been a mixed bag. There's no doubt that he's the face of this franchise. There's no doubt that the fans want him to stay. And I guarantee you, if you think fan interest is low right now, it's going to be significantly lower if Vladdy gets up and walks away in a year's time. It's going to be astronomically lower if Vladdy is no longer on this team because he sells tickets. He's an exciting player to watch, especially when he performs the way that he did last season. So there's no doubt that Blue Jay fans want him to stay on the roster. But once you start getting into that dangerous game of anybody can offer him $500 million, and you just don't think that as highly of him as some other teams, then that's when you can get in trouble and just outright lose him, which I could see as a genuine possibility, especially if they're clearly not close on a contract extension. They've been trying at this for a couple of years now, or at least that's what we've been hearing. But still, nothing has come to fruition here. And Vladdy is a Blue Jay for at least one more year. Maybe he gets traded at the deadline. Maybe he leaves at the end of the season for nothing. It's total nightmare scenarios here that we're trying to like deconstruct. It's just terrible. It's awful.
Yeah, and this is all in the midst of hopefully them still having to sign some big free agents this offseason that maybe lures Vladdy to stay. And we know that regarding the Yankees, we know at least if he goes to free agency, Peter, we won't have to worry about a bidding war with the New York Yankees and him going there because he said it would never sign with the Yankees, not even dead. And then in 2023, a personal thing that goes back to his family. But you can see this here. So Foolish Baseball came out and made a tweet. It said, feels like the Jays had a little lull in Vladdy Jr.'s career in 2023 where they could have extended him, but now he's coming off of an elite year and one season away from free agency. And they should have seen that year coming because the data implied he was getting unlucky. You have some other fans coming out and saying a player coming from generational wealth who has access to the same data that says he was unlucky is not taking a discount. He bet on himself, and that is fine. The Jays have 3 months to find common ground. So there's kind of a couple different perspectives here. And Brandon BK, shout out to him. We all know he broke the George Springer signing back in 2021. So Jared Carabas, a notable Red Sox guy, he said, I'm not trolling. I'm genuinely asking, why do players not want to take the Blue Jays money? In this case, he was referring to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And then we have some Jays fans coming to the defense. Otani choosing the Dodgers for equal money, Soto choosing the Mets for equal money, loose Vlad reports that don't provide context. It made all the sense in the world for Vlad to wait out Soto. So, Peter, I'm curious to see what your thoughts are here. And you have a Mets fan chiming in saying this is all the reason why the Mets aren't bringing back Pete Alonso because they're going to sign Vladdy in the offseason or make a trade for him at the deadline. This happens with every star player, but man, oh man, this opened a floodgate of people speaking out about it, saying trade for Vladdy, all these different things. But I think at the end of the day, it's a decent point here. Like, I'm sure they tried to extend Vladimir Guerrero Jr. We know now they did at $340 million before the Juan Soto extension. And now they have a few months until the season starts in March, late March, to find common ground here. And if they don't, then you're entering the season with a very scary outlook.
Yeah, and I just look at some other star players around Major League Baseball, and I would use that as a framework if I was the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm not saying about a contract right now. I'm saying they should have extended him or bought out his arbitration years the minute he stepped onto the big league field. We saw Jackson Churio in Milwaukee sign an 8-year deal before he even had an at bat in the big leagues because that's how highly they think of him. And it's kind of arrogant by the Blue Jays to not have done that because they thought that, oh, no problem. He's not going to want to leave. He's not going to want to go find a better situation than Toronto. We're the best that he can get offered. Whereas Milwaukee acknowledges that they're a small market team. They acknowledge that they struggle to compete financially with some other clubs. The Blue Jays don't. But if you take a look at the past couple of seasons here, they have struggled to get the top free agents. They haven't gotten any of them. So it's a false sense of arrogance that the Blue Jays have by not trying to extend him right away, not trying to make him one of the highest paid players in baseball the minute that he got called up to the big leagues. That was a missed opportunity. Then each and every year that goes by, he gets more expensive. And each and every good season that he has, he also gets more expensive. So now I don't think he's priced himself out of Toronto, but you're going to have to go to a zone that you have not even thought about entering in terms of contracts now. Your largest contract in franchise history is $150 million to George Springer. It's a good amount of money, especially for a guy who's in his 30s when he signed the deal at the time. I'm not saying the Blue Jays don't spend money, but now the way that the market is moving in, you have a homegrown star who you could have extended 5 years ago, but now you waited and you waited and you waited. He's going to hit the open market. He's probably going to get 4 to 500 million dollars. I guarantee it at least starts with a four. And now you're screwed, for lack of a better word. You are absolutely screwed if you're the Blue Jays. And I'm not saying that they can't re-sign him. I'm not saying that they can't extend him. What I'm saying is that now every team has a chance to get him. When you had him in your backyard for 5 years and you did nothing, you just watched his years of control dwindle away. And now he's a year away from free agency, and you are in some hot water.
Yeah. And the only counterpoint would be he had some rough years, so maybe they were hesitant. But I mean, you saw it in 2021. Could have extended him after that season. And at that point, I mean, I'm sure they had the internal knowledge knowing the contracts were going to go up anyway. Now we're talking about contracts that, Peter, I don't think it's going to be too long until we have $1 billion contract coming in here for whoever the next
Oh.
superstar ends up being from the pipeline, whether that's Jackson Holiday, whether that's someone else. But let us know down below what your thoughts are on this. It's interesting. Again, the free agency is still ongoing. The Corbin Burns still unsigned. You have a bunch of guys, Anthony Santander, Teoscar Hernandez. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news surrounding that, and hopefully the Jays make one of these moves. So make sure to hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you guys later.